What makes a problem a policy analysis problem? What are the key elements that help us to decide whether or not an issue is relevant for policy analysis? In this video, we will address these questions. Problem formulation is critical for policy analysis. Solving the wrong problem is one of the most well-known pitfalls, and unfortunately it is quite common. Before you invest in any further problem analysis, you will want to do a first check to see if you indeed can expect that your topic could benefit from policy analysis. This check is fairly easy to do once you know the key components in a policy problem. Let's look at them one by one. First, we speak of a problem when there is a gap between the desired situation and the existing situation, or when we expect a future gap between a desired future situation and the expected future situation. For instance, 30 years ago, climate change was a problem because rising temperatures were expected to change future climate conditions, leading to numerous undesirable consequences. Today, you could argue that climate change is a current problem, with more and more extreme weather events that lead to loss of life, economic damage, and other undesirable consequences. These are relevant gaps for a policy problem. Not everyone may worry about the same gap. What, for one organization, may be a problem, may be an acceptable situation for another. For instance, for climate change, NGOs like the World Wildlife Fund or Extinction Rebellion will consider investments in developing oil fields a problem. They want to stop this as soon as possible. For big oil companies like Shell or Exxon, developing oil fields is not a problem. For them, stopping with these developments on the short term would be a problem, which they would argue leads to economic crisis during the transition period towards renewable energy. In short, the problem is subjective. Different stakeholders will see different desirable futures and therefore see different problems. You have to be explicit about your problem owner. Is this the Ministry for Environmental Affairs or the Ministry for Industry? It will make a difference. In a policy, we formulate actions, strategies or regulations that we expect will help us to improve the situation. We do this to close, reduce or prevent a gap. For instance, to prevent damage from flooding. This means that for a policy problem, only a problem owner and a gap are not sufficient. We also need to have some influence on this gap, some actions we could consider to solve the problem. This influence can be directly, but also indirectly. For instance, Extinction Rebellion cannot force oil companies to stop developing new oil fields. However, they can mobilize public support to influence national governments, who can stop giving out permits for the development of oil fields. If the gap is not actionable at all for your problem owner, it is not a policy problem. For instance, Extinction Rebellion may have planned a demonstration on Thursday, and it turns out that for this Thursday a heavy thunderstorm is expected. This thunderstorm is not something they can prevent or influence. It is an event, not a problem. Of course, how to respond to this event can be a problem. They can choose, for instance, to postpone their action or not. And this brings us to the next element of a policy problem, at least for policy analysis. We have a gap, we have actions or policies to influence this gap, but to require further analysis, we also need a dilemma. A dilemma created by the presence of different alternative actions, each of which will have partly desirable and partly undesirable consequences. There are trade-offs involved. If it is clear that the thunderstorm will be so heavy that action is no longer possible, there is only one choice for Extinction Rebellion: postpone the action. But if there is something uncertain about the severity of the storm, and when postponing the action will require a lot of additional efforts, a trade-off emerges. It is no longer clear if it would be better to continue with the action as planned, or if it would be better to change its form or to postpone it. Finally, policy is all about coordination or collective action. This can be coordination in a private company between different corporate units or staff members, or coordination in the public domain between multiple actors. This means that, besides your problem owner, also other stakeholders or actors will be involved in the problem. And please note that in this course we use actors and stakeholders as synonyms. In public policy settings, the term actor seems more common. In corporate management settings, the use of stakeholder may be more prevalent. We will use both to refer to organizations, groups, or individuals who play a role in a policy problem, either because they also care about the problem, because they are supporters or opponents for your problem owner, or because they are needed for a successful solution, or maybe they are likely to be affected by a solution, or because they are causing the problem. So, in conclusion, your very first step as a policy analyst is to check that you are dealing with a policy analysis problem, and to do a first check against the key elements: problem owner, gap, actions, trade-offs causing a dilemma, and actors or stakeholders. If you have checked that those elements are there, you are ready to start. Good luck with your policy analysis.